Anemoia, nostalgia for a time you've never known. This is exactly the feeling I got from playing Edith Finch. Sometimes the game even managed to gently invoke memories. It did this with an incredibly captivating story and relatable characters, a world filled with beauty, mystery, a dash of horror and, of course, tragedy. Now, a little warning, if you haven't played Edith Finch, there are spoilers in this video for key moments of the game, but you should probably give it a shot anyway. It's really brilliant, and at around 2.5 hours it's also incredibly short, so there's really no reason to skip it. Also, this isn't a finely calculated analysis of the game or its meaning, it's just me sharing my opinion after I played it. As the title suggests, the game focuses on Edith and the return to her obscure childhood home. She had left it many years ago, although not entirely by her own will.
I kicked and screamed, but Mom dragged me to the car.
Hoping to understand what had happened, she's seeking resolve as the stakes of her own life have become more significant. It's pretty clear early on that the house plays a significant role in the story. Its looming yet quirky nature is intriguing from the get-go. The journey through its innards feels like a haunting yet beautifully nightmarish maze. Cramped, but never so much so that it becomes claustrophobic, and despite its abandoned nature, there is a surreal warmth to it. Like an old photograph, it bears the mark of love.
But instead of a family, there were just memories of one.
If you ever went looking for whatever up in your attic and accidentally came across a box of old photographs or some other memorabilia that caught the corner of your eye and hypnotized you into a 3-hour nostalgia session, that's exactly how it feels like to play the game.
Reading this, maybe it sounds like I had a plan.
Scattered throughout the house are the rooms of her late siblings and relatives, sometimes inaccessible at first, closed off or downright hidden. That's because her mother had not only metaphorically tried to bury the past, but literally sealed it off. In order for her to get closure, she has to find ways around those deliberate restrictions. Luckily, the house provides more than just one way to enter these treasured rooms, and as Edith ventures deeper and deeper into the story, she relives everyone's final moments through intricate flashbacks triggered by tokens found in their respectful spaces. It's an astonishingly graceful way of telling these ultimately tragic ends.
The day he made up his mind to fly, and he did.
For 500 years, the Finches have been famous throughout Norway for their fortune and misfortune.
The Finch family originally migrated from Norway with Odin reaching the shores of Orca Island by 1937, but the arrival came at a great cost: his life.
Odin Finch is the first to be buried in the new family cemetery.
Succeeded by his daughter Edie, who together with her husband Sven immediately began working on their new home, decided to build it right there, on the shores of misfortune. This is a stark contrast to how her daughter Dawn, Edith's mother, dealt with her history. Whereas Edie embraced and treasured the memories, literally keeping them within eyesight, Dawn resented her legacy, believing it to be the cause of all her turmoil, which eventually led to her and Edith's departure.
The table was still a wreck from the night we left.
But despite this climactic event, you never get the impression that the Finches hated each other, which is probably due to the strong bond the family formed throughout their sufferings. The rooms are evident to that as well, as they are perfectly encapsulated conduits of their owner's personality. Everyone was given their own space to live in and be who they wanted to be, even though not all of them necessarily understood each other or themselves.
That part of him lived on.
Take Walter, for example, who was so afraid of the monster or curse that he ended up living beneath the house, hidden, separated and unbeknownst to the rest, except for Grandma Edie. His is a story of fear and imprisonment, of loss not by others but by his own choice, which after 30 years he couldn't bear anymore.
I can already imagine the sun on my face.
Others had a more active existence, like Barbara, who grew up as a child actor but lost her shine as time moved on, desperately trying to reclaim her spotlight before disappearing mysteriously, or if the comic in her room is to be believed, found her conclusion in the final performance, dedicated to her fans. Not everyone found their end at the hands of others. Some like Lewis or Milton chose to leave by themselves. Although Milton's escape is never further elaborated, we can assume that he left on his own terms. His brother Lewis's story, on the other hand, is a lot more difficult to digest. Insecure and unable to understand his desires and wishes, he realized that the reality in which he resided wasn't true. He began to replace his purgatorial mundanity with a more enticing, enriched version in which he was able to make the decisions and changes he couldn't do in the real world, with the final choice being a pathway for him to cross over.
Bend down his head. And the rest I think you know. Mrs. Finch, your son was a kind man who will be missed by all of us who knew him.
I don't think the solution is as simple as a curse. Dawn couldn't comprehend why her children were dying, thus creating the remedy, which was the only way for her to cope with the situation. But that's not the point of the story, it's part of it. The way I see it might be a bit morbid at first, but looking at how all the stories conclude, I believe all of them actually left happier than they lived. Odin reached his dream of finding a new home for his family. Molly became the devouring monster striking revenge upon her captors, and Barbara regained her shine while Calvin reached the vastness of space. Walter figured out that life was worth living, and Sam got to share his knowledge and love. Gregory escaped the horrors of divorce, Milton and Lewis both escaped to their own worlds, and Dawn finally managed to leave her home, while Edie returned to hers. Maybe the stories are about escape, seeing as most of the family felt either out of place or unhappy with their existence. Like caged birds, they were held captive and unable to spread their wings, literally. This would coincide nicely with what you can find in Edie and Swen's room, immortalizations of their late airborne pets, just like the rest of the family. Even the name Finch refers to a type of bird that is most often associated with a cheer for life. However, that's only part of the puzzle. I believe all the stories end up translating into two core messages: to appreciate the beauty of life and the inability to predict and control it. I think Edie realized this too, which is why she returned to her home. Using the stories her family had amassed, she can guide her child from the afterlife, teaching him the meaning of life, according to Finch. You can't escape it, no matter how far you travel. You can't hide from it, or you'll end up not living at all. You can't prepare for it, no matter how hard you try, and you can't ignore it, like Dawn, who ended up losing what she sought after most, her family.
I'm sorry, you're right. We're all leaving tomorrow. Let's just enjoy our last...
I'm not leaving.
But you can embrace it, and maybe you will live long enough to enjoy it several times over. And in the end, that's what I took away from the game. The unpredictable beauty of how life unfolds, and that death is maybe the most important part of it, because it makes it all so much more worth it.
Good luck.
Hey, thanks for watching my video, I really appreciate it, and I'm thinking of doing more game content related topics in the future. And if you're thinking, I missed Gus, well, you're absolutely right. The reason is I couldn't figure out how he fits into the rest of the story. But maybe that's the point. He was a punk after all, so going against the norm might just be what he's all about. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching again, and as always, see you in the next one. Bye!